there a second? Dr. Bandre seconds. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. First item on our agenda this evening is recognitions and presentations with Ms. Jennifer Camion.
Good evening. We'll start off this evening with the You Make a Difference Awards. Staff members are nominated by colleagues to receive a You Make a Difference Award for their support of students and the mission of Salina Public Schools. Board of Education members surprise recipients during their workday with a lapel pin and a handwritten note. Trish Hayden, Data Manager, GED Examiner at the Salina Adult Education Center. Trish has helped the SAEC Main Office and Diploma Completion Program remain open and communications stay on track when staff have been gone by stepping up and filling the vacancies. She patiently helps instructors stay on top of data collection and does a great job of meeting state timelines. Thank you for making a difference, Trish. Andrew Armbrust, Adaptive Special Education Teacher at Opportunity Now. Andrew teaches multiple subjects at Opportunity Now. He uniquely connects current events to history to make it relatable to students. He teaches science along with some piano and guitar. His great sense of humor keeps learning fun. Thank you, Andrew, for making a difference. Candy Fitzpatrick, counselor at Central High School. Candy takes the time, effort, and energy to reach out to colleagues with care and support. She encourages them to take time for themselves and reminds them that we are all going through this together. Her door is always open, and she is never too busy to support someone. Thank you for making a difference, Candy. Carol Allen, bilingual teacher at Sunset Elementary School. Each day, Carol maximizes her time to fit in additional individualized instructional times, supporting teachers and meeting students' needs, teaching in the after-school program, and sharing her can-do attitude with everyone around her. Carol's efforts and initiative are invaluable. Thank you, Carol, for making a difference. Randy Megg, Facility Manager 1 at Meadowlark Ridge Elementary School. Randy keeps Meadowlark's building components running smoothly, and his influence on building culture is equally as effective. He always has a joke, smile, or assistance at the ready for staff. He knows most, if not all, students by name and reliably makes the time to talk with them when they seem distressed. Thank you for making a difference, Randy. Stephanie Johannes, math instructor at Central High School. Stephanie helped preserve the feeling of belonging and connection for a homebound student. She created a Google Classroom, designed step-by-step instructions to complete the unit, emailed feedback, and made sure to remain current on the students' communication and work. Thank you, Stephanie, for making a difference. And now we'll move on to our Superintendent Excellence Awards. And we'd like to begin with thanking Hannah Watkins, Central High School photography intern, for taking pictures of the awards this evening. Our first group of awards goes to journalism students at South High School who placed at the Regional Kansas Scholastic Press Association's Journalism Contest. Kim Warren is the advisor. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? And will all the journalism students please line up next to them as well. Just a reminder, yes, very busy students. This time of year, there are lots of activities going on. We will go ahead and read the names of the students. Ariana Nunez, Delin Vasquez, Francisco Guadardo, Jose Garcia, Lillian Artis, and Yasmin Eisen. Congratulations to all of you, and please allow the board to congratulate you now. Our next group of awards goes to journalism students at Central High School who placed at the Regional Kansas Scholastic Press Association's Journalism Contest. Darren Steinman is the advisor. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? And will all the journalism students from Central please line up as well? Students, I would ask that you please step toward Superintendent X line to receive your award when I call your name. Students are Dayton Weinbrenner, second in sports writing at state. You can go to the end of the line and then wait till everyone has received their awards. Very good. Mason Nemechek. Alessandra Fisher, third in feature writing at state. Asby Peckham. Ileana Linsenmeyer, Hannah Watkins, Rose Allen, Rashada Smith, Josh Warner, and I'll read a couple other names just in case we have additional students here with us. Did we get everybody? Is there no? Okay. All right. Jillian DeVoe, Natalia Granado Flores, Faith Ross, Yitzel McClendon, Chloe Highsmith, Carson Arnold, Noemi Leva, Madison Sunram, Allison Shack. Is everyone? Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now. Next, we recognize Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge YEC students who qualified for the state contest. Though they are involved in other activities this evening and unable to attend, both Jesus Mariscal Valencia with his business Strings and Dings and Adia Peck with her business Donkey Doo received $600 awards. Adia also received a $1,000 scholarship for her existing business. Sponsors are Orlando Carmona at South High School and Marissa McCartney at Central High School. Congratulations. Our next award recognizes Kylie Carter, senior at Central High School, for being named a 2022 Kansas Career and Technical Education Scholar. Though Kylie is traveling with the softball team tonight, we offer her our congratulations. Next, we will recognize Kansas Silver Seal of Biliteracy recipients. David Cooper is here representing South High School. Leo Alvarado is the Central High Coordinator for Seal of Biliteracy, but couldn't be here tonight, and Lexi Ellerbeck from Central High is here in his place. The Kansas Seal of Biliteracy recipients are students who possess the abilities to not only speak, but also read and write grammatically correct words and sentences in at least 2 languages. The seal is a statement of accomplishment that recognizes a student's readiness for career in college and for engagement as a global citizen. Will all the Seal of Biliteracy students please line up? All right, and we have someone with us. Very good. And I will call the names. Hannah Camacho Romero. And Hannah was from South. And from Central we have Melissa Chavez. Natalie Chavez. Araceli Davila. Alejandro Guadardo. Juan Luna. Rosa Luna Rodriguez. Zarissa de Aguilar. Valeria Martinez. Zabdiel Ramirez Pineda. Congratulations, and please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you. Our next group of awards goes to French students at South High School who placed in the National French Contest. Brenda Geist is the teacher. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? Will all the French students please line up next to Superintendent Exline and Mrs. Geist? As I call your name, please step towards Superintendent Exline so you can receive your award. Team members are Level 1 participants, Karen Cuevas, a silver medalist, 1st in state, 6th nationally. Alfredo Soto Cardona, honorable mention. Natalia Silvestri, honorable mention. Xiomara Perez Sorto, honorable mention. Hao Tran, honorable mention. Susie Beachy, honorable mention. Caitlin Geist, honorable mention. Level 2 participants, Lourdes Sanchez, a silver medalist, 1st in state, 9th nationally. Dara Kenyon, honorable mention, 3rd in state. Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now. Our last group of awards goes to forensic students at South High School who qualified for state. Megan Hageman is their coach. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? And will all the forensic students please line up next to them? So we'll read the names of the South High students who qualified for state. Seth Carter, Jennifer Wen, Ava Williamson, Francisco Guadardo, Adele Gary, Reese Kimmy, Denalyn Vesquez, Alexander Figueroa Castro, Lillian Ardis, Grady Smith, Elizabeth Lovett, Caitlin Geist, Allie Bray, Elijah Krabs, Isabel Fulkerson, and Peyton Rice. Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now. This evening, we also recognize our Renaissance Teachers of the Month, January through May 2022. Will they please join Superintendent Exline in front of the room? The January through May Renaissance Teachers of the Month for Lakewood Middle School. January, Michelle Griffiths, English. March, Susan Gaskill, Science. April, Kyle Yukina, Science. May, Mandy Ediger, Special Education. South High School Teachers of the Month, January, Lisa Mailer, English Language Arts. February, Craig Bagley, Business Education. March, Melissa Gates, Business. April, Alyssa Lane, Orchestra. May, Caleb Stewart, English. South Middle School Teachers of the Month, January, Jill Barber, FLC Special Education. February, Cindy Monk, English. March, Ben Featherston, Math. April, Brian Duncan, Technical Education. May, Michelle Cooper, Science. Due to prior commitments, the following were unable to be with us this evening. From Central High School, Lori Train, Marissa McCartney, Leo Alvaredo, Billy Joe Bonner, Alyssa Waldron, and from Lakewood Middle School, Tess Leach. Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now.
Right, it's always great when we can recognize students, but recognizing staff is wonderful as well. So, the next item on our agenda this evening is approval of the consent agenda items, to include the minutes of the April 12th, 2022 regular meeting, the minutes of the April 26th, 2022 special meeting, the minutes of the May 4th, 2022 special meeting, the amended personnel report, the financial report, including the April bills list, the March treasurer's report, the March investment report, the March journal entries, to improve encumbrance listings to Skyward for the annual renewal of the student record system in the amount of $68,586.63, to Johnson Controls in the amount of $33,905.20 for the annual service agreement for maintenance and repairs of the electronic entry system, to Apple in the amount of $100,647 for the replacement of iMacs in the high school's computer labs, to CDWG for the purchase of the Prometheum active panels in the amount of $89,672, to approve Chromebook case covers bids to iPearl Inc. in the amount of $51,700.10, to approve the 2022-2023 food program prices, to approve the Lakewood Middle School fundraising activity, and to approve the federal Head Start and Early Head Start grant applications for the cost of living adjustment and quality improvement in the amount of $148,901. There is no match required. Is there a motion regarding the consent agenda? Ms. Zimmerman?
Mr. President, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Mr. Grant seconds. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. The next item on our agenda is public forum. And do we have no one wishing to speak at public forum this evening? Okay. So the next item on our agenda will be the action agenda and the 2022-2023 student handbooks. And library procedures first, I guess, with Ms. Rector.
Yes, good evening. And so I'm here today to propose some library procedures that were developed as part of the Instructional Materials Challenge. And so I would like to review those materials. And these are procedures that we are actually recommending for elementary, middle school, and high school handbooks. And if you remember, the elementary handbook was approved because we just had general updates like personnel and so forth. So this would be in addition to that elementary handbook that was already been approved. And so I'll just go ahead and review the procedures for you. So what we wanted to do with the library procedures is make sure that we had a mechanism to inform parents of the procedures for them to be able to find out more information about the books that they are checking out from the library, to know a little bit about some of the library procedures. And so we're taking this opportunity to put it in the handbooks at elementary, middle, and high school. And then also the same information will be available on the website. And so as you'll see that the library catalog access for families is a heading there. And so what that does is it tells parents how they can access the library catalog. And so it says to go to the school website. And what we'll be working with is making sure that each of the websites are accessible, and they're accessible in a uniform way. And those are pretty much already in place. And so they can go to the website, they can click on Our School tab, click on Library, the Library Card Catalog tab, and then they'll be able to have their student log in, and they'd be able to see what books that their student has checked out, and then they can also find out more information about those books. One of the other things about our card catalog is it's actually available to anybody that wants to look at those card catalogs and be able to check out books or just read about a book that's in our library before a student has ever checked it out. So there's directions for that. Then the process for parental oversight. And so what you'll see there is that basically we kind of have two different processes based upon the age of the students. And so the library media specialist should be contacted directly if parents would like to provide permission before their students check out any book. At the elementary, the library media specialist will notify parent by email or phone regarding the book the student would like to check out to get permission. At middle school and high school, the student would provide their parent with the title of the book that they wish to check out, and then the parent will contact the library media specialist by email or phone to give permission. And the difference for that is the age. So at elementary, they're going to need more support by that library media specialist to communicate with their parents and to communicate what books they would like to check out. And then at middle and high school, this gives the student a chance to have a conversation with their parent, to be able to share what they would like to check out, and then that way that parental conversation can happen and they can discuss what book that the student wants to check out and then notify the library media specialist to provide permission. Then the rest of the policy is just some generalized terms about checking out materials and loan periods. So at elementary, they are able to check out books for a 2-week period, and the number of books is based upon the age of the student. So that is determined at each grade level. And then at middle school, they can check out 3 books for a 3-week period, and at high school, they can check out 8 books for a 3-week period. And then there's the description of lost or damaged materials, how we process that, and then overdue notifications. And I do want to point out that even if a student has a book out that's overdue, they can still check out materials from our library. We do not want to stifle any access to library books. And so if they have the parents are notified by Skyward, there's communication, but they still can check out books even if they have something that's overdue. And so do I have any questions? And like I said, this will be added to the elementary, middle, and high school handbooks, and Dr. Stevens will be speaking to the middle school and high school about the other parts of the handbook in just a minute.
I have no questions, but just want to acknowledge the work to pull this together. I think it's a really great outcome. So it's good stuff. I think it's a great thing for parents in the community.
Well, we want to make sure that we're communicating, and any way that we can strengthen our communication, we like to do that, and we want to do that for our parents.
Well, thank you for all your work and making some changes. I just had some questions. So the parents, they need their child's password to log in to see what their child has checked out, right?
Yeah, they can have a conversation with their middle school student, their high school student to be able to do that. And if they find that, you know what, that conversation is difficult to have with their student, or their student doesn't want to share it, then at any point in time, the parent can contact the library media specialist, and the library media specialist would work with that parent to help that communication.
Okay, that's good. I know some of you are, I think Lynn talked about the Destiny account. Can you explain that?
Yeah, the Destiny account is actually, that's the card catalog kind of system. That's the name for the system. And so when we talk about Destiny account, that's actually what they're logging into. That's the card catalog system that we use.
Okay, because I was on the website and they pulled it up, and then you could put in your title and read all about the books. But then there's a Destiny account over to the side, which will look like is it just says the same thing, only a different format?
Basically, it says the same thing. That gives the general information, but when the student logs in, you would be able to see what book the student has checked out. And so that login is basically for that student to be able to check out books. That's how they kind of keep track of it in the library. And then the parent would be able to see what the student has logged in and be able to see that. But the information that's provided in Destiny is the information that's available basically with or without a login. The login is needed for that specific information about that student.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I went on the American Library Association because that, we use that in the library. And, which I'm thinking is very good to put it in place because they have the most challenged books on the ALA, which is in 2018, there were 483 books challenged, and in 2021, there were 1,597 books challenged. So there is, I'm glad we put something in place so parents can know, because there's apparently an onslaught of things in the that's available.
One of the things that we're also going to do is that on that website link where it talks about library for parents, we will actually have some information on there. So that way parents will understand what does young adult mean. And so that way we'll try to provide additional information to parents and patrons if they want to see how to find out information about the books that we have in our library.
Good deal. Superintendent, excellent.
So one of the questions that was asked when we were actually discussing this before was about the descriptors that were in Destiny. And so I had asked Mrs. Rector about that YA designation, because many of the books that are, that some parents may want to monitor or discuss with their child would be books that have a YA designation. At the middle school, those are in a separate part of the library. The kids have to be older to collect them out, to check them out, and they are also books that are recommended for that middle school age. At the high school, the YA books, much of the literature that has that designation, you would be able to see when you get into Destiny. You can see that it's a YA book, and so when Mrs. Rector has the media specialist develop that list of here's what the kind of the designations mean about the books, that would be a good way for a parent to know, you know what, if my child wants to check out this book, it's one that maybe I want to read with them and discuss with them. And so that's just another piece of information, and I appreciated her suggestion of adding those codes so that parents would know what that means.
Ms. Zimmerman?
If an elementary parent wants to check on what their students are reading, do even the elementary students have a login ID?
I think the older grade levels do, but not some of our younger students. So they would just contact the library media specialist to be able to help them if the student didn't know.
Thank you.
Where do you get your review or the description of what the book is about?
It comes with the Destiny package in the sense that it provides that information. And so really those are vetted through the library media specialist kind of organizations and suppliers, so that way they know what. So different books will have different amounts of information depending upon what has been provided. And so in the age of the book, some of our newer books probably have more information because of the digital age. And so it really kind of depends upon where their source is for that particular book and what the publisher provides.
Oh, okay, because I noticed on the book that was challenged was from Amazon.com, the description was. So I was just wondering, you know, because I went there, Amazon, and got more information there as well. But it's, yeah, I was just wondering where the sources were.
I think
that.
it varies for different books. Actually, I went ahead and looked at a couple of book titles to see what information was provided. There are different pieces to the Destiny product. There's also like something that's called a title peek, that if parents really want to, you know, kind of dig in a little bit, that they can click on that. And we'll give directions for this on the website. But if they click on title peek, for some books, it may provide information like the table of contents. It may provide different reviews of books. And so it kind of depends upon what the publishers provided and the age of the book, because older books sometimes don't have some of that digital information available.
Okay. I know I'll say I appreciate the responsiveness, you know, listening to the committees that were involved in that process and taking advice and parents. Technology's come a long way from when we used to use the stamp on the little card and they had
We don't
the
have to pull
cabinet.
those cards anymore.
Yeah, quite a bit different there. This is up for, on our action agenda tonight, if, Mr. Grant?
Mr. President, I move we approve the library procedures to be included in the handbooks for elementary, middle, and high school students beginning with the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. We have a motion. Is there a second? Dr. Bandry seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rector. Next on our agenda is the middle school handbook with Dr. Stevens.
All right, good evening. May it please the board tonight, just to kind of summarize some of the pieces of the handbook that's taken place with the changes. So our middle schools went from 2 separate individual handbooks. We spent this past 3 or 4 months kind of working together with Mr. Chrisman and Mr. Dooley to collapse those into one. Same thing on the high schools. We had 3 basic types of changes: the consolidated handbook changes to make sure that our language was congruent and moved from just being school-specific to including both. We also reordered those items into the categories to make it a little bit more logical in its placement and user-friendly for our parents. And then specific language updates, which I reviewed with you at the last board meeting. Some of the individual plan of study language updates, as well as the policy updates, including the one that just passed tonight, has been added in page 7 and 8 of the handbook. We also updated, of course, other things like dress code that was adopted the last meeting as well. So many of the changes with the high school and the middle school are very similar in that nature, and our goal is to make it as concise and clear for our parents and students, but also to ensure that our policies are congruent and everything is copacetic in its presentation for our parents. Are there any questions from the board regarding the middle school or high school handbook changes?
Dr. Bandry?
Not a question, just a comment. I noticed in both the middle school and the high school handbook where the just approved library procedure was inserted, we went ahead and retained the language for elementary, middle, and high school in both. And I thought about questioning that, but the more I thought about it, I like it there.
Right.
Just because a lot of our families have people in multiple schools, and it doesn't hurt to cover all the bases that way.
Well, I appreciate your comment on that. That was something that I looked at several times, and I thought, well, I'll just put in the secondary. And the more I thought about it as a parent, I like to know how it's different, and I feel like that's been such an important piece for our community, so I wanted to make sure we included it, and it was there, so the parent didn't have to dig to find it. Okay.
Any other questions of Dr. Stevens? This is also an item on our action agenda this evening.
Do we want separate motions?
Yeah, we need to have separate motions on it.
And motion for the
Mr. Grant.
middle school handbook. Move we approve the 2022-2023 middle school student handbook as presented.
A motion, Dr. Bandry seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Zimmerman,
I move that we approve the high school student handbook as presented.
very good. We have a motion. Is there a second? Dr. Bandry seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Dr. Stevens.
Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody, for the work. Mr. Christman, since you're here, special thanks as well.
Yes. It's nice to see you at a board meeting, Mr. Christman. Appreciate seeing you. So, next item on our agenda is the materials adoption, elementary reading with Dr. Snyder.
Good evening. It's great to see you all again. Last month, I had the opportunity to review the Into Reading resource with you. And as you recall, this resource was voted on by our teachers as the resource they would like to utilize moving forward into next year for kindergarten through 5th grade. Were there any additional questions for me?
Dr. Bandry?
Can I comment? Well, I went up and looked through all the books and the extra stuff that goes along with it. I was really impressed with it, and I thought you did a good job of picking out a good curriculum.
Thank you. Had lots of help.
Ms. Zimmerman?
I move that we approve the elementary reading adoption for Into Reading version 2 as presented at the April 12, 2022 meeting.
The motion, Mr. Gardner seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank
Dr. Snyder, thanks again for the great work. And I just think it's exemplary that teachers take the time to be involved, and we go through a vote. That's exactly the way it should be, in my opinion, so.
Yes. They were very involved, and
Yep.
they took the chance to be able to vote and look through it. And like I mentioned last month, the turnout for that was really good. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Materials adoption for Salina Virtual Innovation Academy. Ms. Tracy Hutton.
Good evening. Last month I presented to you our desire to adopt Accelerate Education as a new curriculum provider for Salina Virtual Innovation Academy. And as I talked about, one of the reasons is to distinguish ourselves and move away from virtual being more like credit recovery and more to, a real school where teachers interact and teachers teach, and Accelerate Ed lets us do that. So now that you've had time to look through that, do you have any questions for me?
Mr. Grant?
No question, but I make a motion.
Go ahead.
We approve the Salina Virtual Innovation Academy adoption of K-12 core and electives as presented at the April 12th, 2022 meeting.
We have a motion. Dr. Bandry seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you
Ms.
so
Sutton.
much.
Next, for our discussion agenda, we get to be with Dr. Snyder again for testing protocol.
Yes, this evening I'd like to share information and an update regarding our district assessment plan. Having a cohesive, balanced assessment plan is really important to ensure that we're giving the right assessments at the right time to gain the right information. The policy requires assessments that the district, the state, and federal requirements, and that each of those assessments given serves a different purpose, whether it's a formative assessment, an interim, or a summative assessment. Formative assessments are those quick checks for understanding, what our teachers do every day throughout the week to make decisions on what's appropriate for next steps in learning. Then we have our interims, and our interim assessments provide an opportunity to check in periodically throughout the year. And those assessments really help our administrators and our educators understand where students are in respect to grade level standards and progress that they're making throughout the year. An example of an interim assessment would be like iReady that we've talked about before and FastBridge. And then we have the summative assessment. And summative is an assessment that occurs at the end of learning to see if students have mastered those grade level standards. And an example of a summative assessment would be our state assessments. In your information that you were provided, you received a document that details assessments that are required at the district, the state, and the federal level. The document also gives a brief description of the assessment. It gives the grade level that's required to take that assessment, the testing window or the approximate time the assessment will be given, and then how long that assessment takes. So beginning at the elementary level, the first assessment that you'll see there is the Ages and Stages Questionnaire. And that is an assessment that is required by the state, and it is completed by parents of the incoming kindergartners. The majority of that time, that assessment is taken the first couple days of school, but we do have until September 20th to get the questionnaire completed. Moving on through the assessments, the reading diagnostic and the BAS, which is the benchmark assessment system, focuses towards our younger learners, and it provides teachers with actionable data regarding reading instruction throughout the year. So that would be another example of an interim assessment. We also use some tools for progress monitoring that is also giving teachers information as they are working with students throughout the year. You will see iReady, and it serves two purposes for our district. This assessment guides ongoing learning throughout the year, but it also provides our K through 8 students with a personalized path for the student that is dependent on their needs. And we talked about that, I believe, a couple weeks ago as well, and how we utilize iReady. The next two assessments that you will see in that document, you will see in the elementary plan, you'll see at the middle school plan, and also the high school plan. And those are two screeners from FastBridge that will be utilized for our kindergarten through 12th grade students. The first one is SABRS, which is short for the Social, Academic, and Emotional Risk Screener that utilizes the Castle Wheel. The State Department of Education is asking districts to measure progress towards the state social emotional outcome by having a universal screener in place. And this will provide helpful insights into students' needs. We will also utilize the FastBridge Suite K-12 to meet the state-required dyslexia screener, and that is also K-12. The state has asked accredited school districts to screen all students to ensure that we are identifying students that are at risk for dyslexia or that are showing characteristics of dyslexia. And so the FastBridge Suite will offer us an opportunity to screen for the social, academic, and emotional risks, but also to meet that dyslexia requirement, both required by the state. Then the other assessment that you'll see in elementary, middle, and high school are the state assessments. These are both state and federal requirements. Again, state assessments are required summative assessments because they evaluate students' overall mastery of state standards at the end of the school year. We just wrapped those up about a week and a half ago. Some additional assessments that you'll see at the high school level are the pre-ACT 8-9, which is very much like the ACT, but it is given to our 9th grade students, and this assessment is funded by the state. This assessment is going to provide insight as to whether a student is college and or career ready. It's going to provide us a complete view of a student's academic readiness, and it also helps counselors and our students with future course enrollment. Work keys and ACT are optional assessments for 11th grade students. Those two assessments are funded by the state as well, and students have the opportunity to sign up for that assessment if they are in 11th grade to take it at school at no cost. If you aren't familiar with work keys, this assessment measures foundational skills required for success in the workplace. So it's really looking at those hard and soft skills that we want our students to have as they enter the workforce. If a student takes the work keys and they have successful completion from their score, they can earn a National Career Readiness Certificate that they can add to their resume as they get ready to leave high school. Teacher feedback and also the work of an assessment committee helps create this assessment footprint for the district. And so it takes, a lot of information, being out in the buildings, talking to teachers, finding out which assessments really are helpful and which ones are not, because we don't want to be given an assessment just to be giving one. We want to make sure it's going to have an impact on our student learning. And so with feedback from the teachers and the committee that comes together that has teachers, it has administrators, lead teachers, testing coordinators, we all come together to really look at our assessments to make sure that they are serving the purpose that we need it to serve. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Not so much a question, but kind of just a reflection on this. We've heard comments, multiple comments about screenings and assessments and these things, and I think it's interesting. I counted 29 different assessments, and of those 29, only 5 are district. The rest are from a state or federal mandate. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that's an interesting reflection.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I wish we could use some of those assessments that we give for the state to impact instruction, but teachers don't really see, I talked a little bit about the state report that we get from state assessments, and the data is not useful, and teachers aren't using that to help drive their instruction throughout the year. But they are finding iReady that we talked about has been so helpful in impacting instruction and making those changes.
Ms. Zimmerman?
So the dyslexia screening, is that new? That's new this year?
This is the first year that we were required to give that that screener, yes.
So we did that in this school year already?
We did it in the school year, yeah.
Okay, oh, in the fall,
We
winter,
did
spring?
use, I should add one thing that we did change. This year, we were using a free resource, it's Dibbles. It has the same subtest or the subtest that we're required to give to screen for dyslexia. However, it is only available for our K-5 students, but the state's requiring us to give a screener K-12. And so by moving to FastBridge, it will provide a cohesive screener K-12 instead of piecemeal together.
And I want to make sure I'm tracking this correct. That was actually that was a legislative piece.
Yes.
And that's not a once a year, that's 3 times a year for all students, K through 12.
K-12, 3 times, yes.
And and then it seems like the first year, it makes sense for everybody to get it, but then after that, I mean, do people develop dyslexia after they, or does it pretty much start and never end, or never, I mean, I don't know. And I know you don't have any control over this, but I'm curious. Do people develop dyslexia at some point in their lives?
So that was a concern that other district testing coordinators from the state have brought to the State Department because, we're testing these students at, the high school level several times throughout the year, and it's not something that they're just going to develop when they're the spring of their senior year. It is something that we hope to catch soon enough, and that's why, that screener is important at the elementary level. And so there are some discrepancies and things that we're not sure of the reason why we need to continue to give it, because it doesn't just doesn't just show up all of a sudden. But it is a requirement that we have to fulfill.
Okay, and it's a law, so I guess we can talk to our lawmakers about that.
There you go.
Thank you.
Dr. Bandry?
Just a comment, not necessarily for you, Dr. Schneider, but I just want to acknowledge that several times over the last 6-8 months, we've had public forum comments that question where USD 305 falls in state rankings, and a lot of that ties back to these things, because the state, for better or for worse, the federal government, for better or for worse, ties a lot of outcomes to test results. And just my personal opinion on these is this test is only as good as how the student feels on that given day. Mr. Gardner has pointed out in previous sessions that poverty impacts how people do on these things. 100% agree with that. And I just want to acknowledge for those that are concerned out there that might be watching us tonight that a lot of things affect ability to do well on tests. I want to acknowledge our teachers because they do a great job. But again, a teacher can't force a student to do well on the standardized test. They can prepare them to grade a plum, but whether the student cares on that given day, whether the student has eaten breakfast that given day, shown up on time, there's so many things that affect it. And it's just difficult in our community with the percentages, high percentages of our students that are on free and reduced lunch. Those dynamics impact ability to do well. So I appreciate that we have to do a lot of these things. I also appreciate the positive things can come from it, but I also want it stated for Ms. Howard's record here that these things have a lot of factors that affect rankings.
Well, thank you. That is very true, and I think often of what Mr. Gardner had said at one of the last meetings about students and how it's important to have different data points because, a student could be having a rough day. I did a lot of assessment visits, and I went out to one building, and there were 3 boys in 4th grade, a building that were really struggling, and 2 of them were in tears, but they were getting ready to take the state assessment. So, to expect them to sit down and do their best when, they weren't in the right frame of mind to do that is difficult.
Ms. Schamberg?
With the testing this year, did you find that there were a number of students that had dyslexia, or what were your findings with this?
The information that we gained from the screener really is information that we had already gathered from the other assessments that we do. So there have been no surprises. I helped screen high school students, and the students that were flagged for me to assess, and then I did an oral reading fluency with them, were students that were already getting additional support. They had an IEP, where they were in an intensive reading class. So there weren't any big surprises of information that we got from this screener compared to the data that we already receive.
Any other discussion? I think, just one more thing I'll kind of put out there, we've had some comment about social emotional screening and things like that. It was interesting to me to find that that's actually pulling together pieces of legislation with the bullying laws and those pieces. That's where that comes from, correct?
Yes. And, we'll actually talk about the KISA in the work session tonight and how that social emotional piece is an outcome for the state. And so in order for us to make progress on that rubric, to be more, proficient, is to have a screener in place.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Snyder.
Thank you.
That moves us to school board reports and upcoming dates of importance. We, of course, have graduation, 3 graduations this week. Virtual Academy will have its first graduation on Friday, and then Sunday we'll have South and Central. So, and we'll go to Ms. Schamberg.
Well, I went to the Central Art Department open house, and, which was amazing, and attended the Book Appeal meeting last week and in a work session.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Grant?
I attended a CKCIE Board of Control meeting. The bulk of the discussion there was about budget projections for next year and assessment changes to member districts. And I didn't write it down specifically, so I'll look to the other people who were there. We settled on a 2% assessment increase, which this was, there's been a lot of work done by our district leadership, Jeff and Superintendent next line, on I feel like guiding the conversation of that group and finally getting to a place of budget planning that's farther out than an immediate impact on member districts with how that budgeting is done. So that was a very positive conversation and good work done by that group.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Ms. Zimmerman?
Yes, it was a busy month. I attended the ESL, the English as a Second Language graduation at Tony's, where the Adult Education Center had been investing lots of time. Well, I guess the 4 graduates who were there in the program had invested lots of their time after their work hours at Tony's at Schwann's to improve their English while continuing to work full-time. Then I attended the Adult Education Center Advisory Board, and we had small group discussions on, talked about how each of the various board members was connected to the Adult Education Center, and I'm sure that Jim's going to talk more about that. I did meet with Representative Stephen Howe to discuss the Parents' Bill of Rights legislation, and we emphasized that the parents are always welcome to talk to the teachers about what's happening in the classroom, and that the parents are urged to participate in things like parent-teacher conferences and PTO, PTA, that we're not hiding things, but it would be stressful on staff to have to spend a lot more time posting their curriculum online or all the things in their classroom online so that someone could sit at home and decide what they liked or what they didn't like without ever going to school. We urged them to go to school and find out there what's happening. I attended the Central Art Open House and the Central Drama production of Peter and the Starcatcher. I attended the Equity Council meeting where we discussed in small groups ways that individuals had experienced failure of belonging and how such things could be remedied. I I read a book to third graders at Sunset. I read I Talk Like a River by Jordan Scott and Sydney Smith. Attended the work session, and I delivered a You Make a Difference award to Mr. Armbrust at Opportunity Now. And it was fun because I had delivered one to his para before the pandemic. So it was fun to deliver one to him as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zimmerman. Mr. Gardner.
We had our final meeting for the school year for Heartland, and I want to give kudos to those folks. A lot of them didn't really have the meeting etiquette in their repertoire. They had a changing of the guard. As you know, the parents are the ones that run those meetings, and they had a changing of the guard, but they really did very well in picking that up and carrying that ball to the finish line, so I want to commend them. It was a great meeting, great school year with those folks taking the reins. Also, I gave out a You Make a Difference to Trish at the adult education. Those folks are doing a great job out there, and we need to continue to commend and support them in everything that they're doing. So,
Dr. Bander.
You all will recall that the Smoky Hill Education Service Center Board meets later in the week after each of our board meetings. So a month ago, on the following Thursday, I went to Smoky Hill, and I'll do so again this Thursday, but highlights from the last meeting. One, they're doing a great job, and I think the service that Smoky Hill provides, not only to Salina, but all the member districts, is just really exemplary. They're working on updating their personnel handbook, which is a timely thing, and I think I've mentioned before that with Diane Mann's gradual transition towards retirement, folks are learning more about the process of how we update that handbook, so really good things going on there. We have work session after this about the KISA process for the district. Smoky Hill's doing KISA as well, so reviewing things in that area, which is good. Tomorrow, the Salina Education Foundation Executive Committee meets. This will be I think, a member of Zoom or Teams, but whatever, it'll be an electronic meeting, so I'm looking forward to see what happens there. Like Ms. Zimmerman and Ms. Schamberger, I was at the Salina Central Art Fair, and I have to tell you, I had probably the biggest honor I've had in a long time there. Mr. Mullins and I had a good conversation. I made an arrangement to purchase one of the pieces of art, and I thought highly enough of it, so made that arrangement. Went back the next day to pick up the piece. Fine, as I was exiting the building, a student said to me, "Good morning, Mr. Fear." So I need to tell you that I was somehow mistaken for being Coach Fear, and I take that as a tremendous honor. So I can't coach basketball to save a lick, but this young person apparently thinks I can, so thank you, Mr. Fear. I did email Mr. Fear the next day, too, in case he's listening. So he and I have acknowledged this, but it was a great opportunity there. I was able to give Ms. Allen her You Make a Difference award at Sunset, and a highlight there was walking the halls with Mr. Cheeks. Mr. Christman, you weren't here, but I harassed folks one day about how quickly you're able to walk through the halls at Lakewood. Mr. Cheeks went at a slightly slower pace, but the reason was every other student wanted to hug him. So by the time we got there, it was a good thing, and again, I appreciate Ms. Allen's work and the tremendous job that she's doing there. And then I went to Meadowlark and was able to meet Mr. Mag, who, as Jennifer said, clearly, I mean, everybody that walked past him was just smiling that he was being recognized. So I just continue to think doing those awards is a tremendous thing. So I'm sure I've forgotten something, but as Ms. Zimmerman said, it's a busy month and more to come, and I appreciate the chance to help serve everybody.
Good deal. Yes, it seems like it has been a very, very busy month, myself included. I got to do present a You Make a Difference award to Candy Fitzpatrick, and it just so happened her recognition was for supporting staff, not necessarily supporting students, but supporting staff. And the day I went to Central High to catch her there, she was actually up here with staff in a meeting. So I got to present that honor in front of other staff members. And that was just kind of a neat thing. Part of the chamber meeting, Parks and Rec advisory meeting, had my first Leadership for Tomorrow session in Topeka. Superintendent Exline and I were up there a couple weeks ago now. Very, very interesting. I really enjoyed it. We spent one day talking about change theory and applying it to public entities, school districts, all those things and all those pieces that go in. There's superintendents in this group, there's board members, there's just leadership from other schools, and it's really interesting to sit at the table and hear different perspectives from other districts, a lot of the same problems, a lot of the same challenges that we have, and just learning more about the certification process, all those things that go in. And then on Friday, we were at the Capitol building, had a few legislators come in after they'd closed the session out. We did try to run down all of our local representation, but they made a 2 o'clock in the morning run home, I think was what I got from most of the text messages I got back from them. But we spent some time with some of the representation up there, and it was interesting, some of the conversation. I didn't get the impression from any of the legislators that they're against education, although sometimes they may get branded that. I think the thing I found is a lot of times it seems like there's a lot of information, and making sure that all the information is the same because there's so many filters that things run through, and trying to process that. But probably the best comment was, if we could just sit down and talk about things more often, we would probably accomplish more together. And I think that that's no truer statement than now. So that's all I have. Superintendent Exline.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple things. The first is that we did submit our Sr3 application, and that's for the federal COVID relief funds. That was to go to the state board this morning to be approved. We should receive the notification of approval tomorrow. But I want to say a thank you to the team of people that worked on that, because Lisa Peters is actually on the state committee that goes through those prior to them going to the State Board of Education. And one of the things that she has said is she's been listening to the questions that have been going back to districts, and we were very, very careful to make sure, as we always are, that we're meeting the expectation and we're doing due diligence as we create our plan. And we met with students, we met with site councils, we met with community leaders from organizations that advocate for students, and we based our plan on the feedback that we got from those meetings and how we were going to spend the money. And then our principals actually sat down and said, okay, based upon my building needs and based upon what the feedback was from the community, here's the best way to use that money at Lakewood, at South High, at Coronado, wherever it might be. What I want you to know is that on Friday, when they reviewed those plans, they held ours up as an example. And Lisa actually missed the meeting on Friday due to another obligation, but she listened because she wanted to know, as they discussed our plan, what they said. And so I think that was very affirming, because we spent a lot of time making sure that we got broad-based input and made a good plan for Salina kids. So thank you to Lisa, thank you to Shanna. We spent hours and hours on that. Thank you to our principals for their work, and for staff and everybody that gave input to us as well. Last Friday, I was able to welcome our third graders for Kansas Kids Fitness Day, and there are some lovely photos of me that were captured by Jennifer's office playing with the students. And at one point I had to kick off my shoes because I was invited to be part of a relay team. And I had to tell one of the kids, you're going to have to take my turn because I can't do this anymore. So it was definitely a fitness day, and it was a lot of fun. And so a shout out to our physical education teachers at the elementary level. They spent countless hours getting that ready, and it really was a neat event. My favorite event was our fire department partnered with us, and there was a stop, drop, and roll activity where the kids had to, when the smoke detector went off, they had to roll, and then they had to call 911, and then they were coaching them, what do you say when you call 911? What information do you give? And so the fire department was there helping with that, and one of the little girls leaned over to me and she said, so are those olden time phones like you had when you were little? And I thought, ouch. But yes, they were olden time phones that had wires like we had when I was little. So a couple legislative updates. There are several items from that K-12 appropriations bill that are worth mentioning. The bill went to the governor on May 6th. The first is the base state aid. There is full funding in that bill for the Gannon plan, and the scheduled base aid amounts, the increases are in there like we are planning on. The other thing that was notable is that the first year of the CPI adjustment is also in there. So that was one of the things that we were kind of waiting to see, would that actually come to fruition? So thank you to our legislators for making that happen. The second thing is there is an open enrollment piece in there that does require districts to allow enrollment of non-resident students. As you know, our policy does allow enrollment of non-resident students already, so that isn't a big change for Salina Public Schools, but that did get a lot of discussion. As far as one other funding piece that I wanted to mention to you is the per pupil funding for virtual students did go up from $5,000 for a full-time pupil to $5,600. So, we established that virtual program this year with the intent of making sure that we were serving the students that live in our area, knowing that we had families that were wanting to continue in a virtual option during the pandemic. And I know that was a little bit of a leap of faith on your part, and I thank you for doing that because we did provide good education to students through that program, but the funding on that did bump up just a little bit for next year. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Exline. The next thing we have on our agenda is our work session. Are we doing that in here? Okay, so we will go to recess and come back for our work session at 6:51. Thank you.